Hello YouTube, how are we doing today, man? We have a new video. We're reacting to IGN, the Resident Evil game that can't be remade. If you don't know, the entire Resident Evil series has been doing like remakes or remasters. You know, they did 1 and 2, which is super successful. I don't think there's technically a 3 or whatever. They remastered 4, I think last year or whatever, which was 4 is like a fan favorite from like, you know, the old days, PS2, GameCube and all that. So that one did amazingly, obviously with the updated graphics and gameplay and all that. And we're obviously waiting on Resident Evil Remaster 5, which was the co-op one with Chris and, was it Sheila? I think her name was. So we're going to watch this. I'm assuming this is talking about that, but I also noticed this has a massive amount of dislikes compared to likes. I don't know why that is.
With Resident Evil 4's
So let's go find out. All right.
With Resident Evil 4's release last year, Capcom's project to remake the glory years of its survival horror series is complete. But as the game's post-credit scene suggests, the remakes aren't over. And so the big question is, where next? The obvious answer is a remake of Resident Evil 5. But on the game's 15th anniversary, it's clear that moving forward chronologically will take Capcom's remakes into the series' weakest era. An era of gameplay and narrative decisions best left in the past. Resident Evil 5 simply can't be remade. At least not to the standards of Capcom's best work. And so the answer is not to remake, but to rewrite.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so they're saying basically Resident Evil 5, the original, was really bad, so they don't want to remake it and just put out another bad story with better graphics. They would have to completely rewrite the story. But then people don't get that nostalgic feeling, which is what they would be getting with a remaster. Okay.
Resident Evil is a
So I'm waiting for where this video garners all these dislikes from.
survival horror series. Not that you'd know that playing Resident Evil 5. Sure, it features a constant flow of horrific imagery, but Resident Evil 5 is an action game through and through. That's evident in its cover shooter mechanics, vehicle chases with on-rails turret sequences, and the constant rattle of assault rifles. Even its visual design evokes the sandy shades of modern military games that experienced mass popularity in the late 2000s. It all speaks to a series that had lost its way. Rather than reflect on the tenets that were the foundation of its experience, Resident Evil 5 looked to the contemporary gaming zeitgeist in an attempt to find a new lease of life. The result is an unholy hybrid of Resident Evil, Gears of War, and Call of Duty. It's as ugly and unwieldy as it sounds. This design appears to not just be a misguided attempt to follow Western successes, but also a misreading of its predecessor. With Resident Evil 4, director Shinji Mikami deftly reinvented the series through the use of a new over-the-shoulder camera angle. The perspective allowed for a more kinetic, action-heavy game. Despite this, Mikami never lost sight of the terror at the core of Resident Evil. Through the use of enemies that were strategically placed to provide undulating waves of tension and fear, and the inclusion of Ashley as your vulnerable charge, combat encounters were focused on surviving overwhelming horrors rather than dominating foes. Resident Evil 5, meanwhile, presents its enemies as waves to be gunned down with increasingly powerful weaponry. Their purpose is cannon fodder, a wall of meat to slow your progress through levels. And those levels are not locations to be explored. Instead, they are largely funnels that push you from entrance to exit. Resident Evil 4 may have replaced the series' traditional continuous structure with discrete levels in an attempt to move away from the backtracking heavy design of previous games, but it preserved the spirit of locations like the Raccoon City police station. The village, Salazar's castle, and the island feature interlocking explorable pathways that solidify these locations as authentic spaces rather than obstacle courses. Resident Evil 5 has no interest in this, with the majority of its stages being little more than corridors peppered with dead ends to hide treasures in. Their lack of authenticity means no one will ever mention the Kijuju Autonomous Zone in the same breath as the Spencer Mansion. All this is to say that a faithful remake of Resident Evil 5 would break Capcom's 7-year streak of brilliant survival horror games. It's telling that the series' reset point, Resident Evil 7, was a reinvention of the very first game, a haunted house that grew ever larger as you unlocked new rooms by solving its puzzles. Clever reinventions of this base conceit is the key to Resident Evil's success, be that dropping an unstoppable force into the house's corridors, such as Resident Evil 2's Mr. X, or expanding the scope of the house. Resident Evil Village's titular location is effectively a giant manor, its corridors are streets, and its rooms are houses. Resident Evil 5's stage-driven structure is simply inferior to this design. A modern recreation of it would only further highlight its flaws, especially coming in such close proximity to masterclasses like the remake of Resident Evil 2.
I remember this, I hated this shit.
Remakes can, of course, completely redefine the structure of their source material. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example, is recognisably an updated version of the classic RPG, but its world design and gameplay mechanics are a world apart from the 1997 original, and so you could argue that Resident Evil 5 is actually the Resident Evil most in need of a remake. A whole new environmental structure and scenario design that reins in the action and dials up the horror would bring it in line with Capcom's other remakes. But all of this doesn't account for Resident Evil 5's most notorious problem: racism.
Which is to all the black people.
Set in a fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary antagonists are black people. Yes, it's technically the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris...
I'm seeing where the dislikes come from.
Redfield is fighting. But the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection. Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa
before their infection. It's crazy.
The protagonist Chris Redfield is fighting. But the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection. Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the Dark Continent, an uncivilized world harboring a diseased population that needs gunning down via Western intervention in the name of global security. This insensitive treatment of people of colour was hotly debated even as early as Resident Evil 5's debut trailer, with writers such as Ngai Kroll and Stephen Totilo pointing out the game's uncomfortable post-colonial imagery. The arguments and think pieces continued well into the game's release window, with IGN's own former editor-in-chief Hilary Goldstein having also wrestled with the subject. But that was 2009, a time when race was apparently a debate rather than a reality. In the 2020s, in a post-Black Lives Matter world, there is only one acceptable response to a white man shooting waves of Africans for an entire video game: no.
There's one thing I do.
I'm listening
I
to
have a
what
job
you're
to do,
saying, IGN.
and I'm gonna see it through.
Remakes may be able to redefine their source material, but there's only so many changes you can make until it's not a remake at all, but an entirely new game. And if you take Africa out of Resident Evil 5, is it Resident Evil 5 anymore? Even with a vastly improved, more sensitive take on the continent, perhaps one with a black protagonist and a more empathetic look at the outbreak, the experience would simply be too divorced from the original to hold the name Resident Evil 5. So where does Capcom go now? Personally, I'd look backwards. Code Veronica is an ideal candidate, as is the original Resident Evil. But if the only way is chronologically forward, then a total rewrite of what comes next is the logical path. Because what followed Resident Evil 4 was not one terrible game, but two. Resident Evil 6 doubled down, no, tripled down, on the action-packed, set-piece heavy shooter design, to the extent that much of it could be mistaken for a third-person Call of Duty spin-off were it not for the monsters. Its restrictive level design practically puts you in a chokehold, forcing you to endure a barrage of bombastic moments that have no interest in evoking any sense of fear. Resident Evil 6 is a survival horror, only in that it's a horrible game that you have to survive playing. But this time around, it doesn't have to be like that. Capcom now has the opportunity to ignore the past and completely reinvent this chunk of the timeline. In Resident Evil 4 Remake's post-credit scene, evil mastermind Albert Wesker details his plans for world domination to Ada Wong. Reflected in his glasses is an image of Excella Gione and the Stairway of the Sun, two significant plot elements from Resident Evil 5, which indicates Capcom's intentions. But there's more to consider. This scene is largely a replication of the sequence from Assignment Ada, a non-canon chapter from the original Resident Evil 4. Its shift from unofficial to canon points to a willingness to change. Furthermore, the end of this scene is completely completely rewritten. When learning of Wesker's plans, rather than dutifully deliver the stolen Las Plagas sample to him, Ada betrays her shadowy boss and forces her helicopter to turn around. In this moment, the future of Resident Evil becomes unclear. Capcom has given itself the freedom to do whatever it wants. I just hope it's not a remake of Resident Evil 5. For more on how Capcom is altering
Okay, here's the thing. When Resident Evil 5, yes, they're killing black people, but like excuse me. It's an infection, bro. Like, you have to highlight to like the gaming community, hey, you're killing black people and it's racist. We don't immediately think, oh, this is racist, why am I killing a ton of black people? This is woke, or I'm not gonna play this game, or the developer. Like, we're not thinking that. We're just trying to play the fucking game. Like, the only people who would be pissed off at that would be woke activists or people who complained about the game before. Majority of the gamer base, of the fan base for this game, doesn't care about that shit. Also, yeah, there was a black protagonist. It's Shiva. Granted, you play as Chris for the entire game, and I believe you can, if you're co-op, you can play as Shiva. You know, you can direct her and stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like highlighting what would seem to be a racist aspect of it is just something the actual gaming community doesn't care about. The woke community and all those people, yeah, they care about, oh, well, this looks like racism. Is it developer racist? We'll scale down this whole tunnel of all that and BS. But it's like, the normal common gamer like me, we just trying to play this shit. This is like, who really cares that much, bro? You know what some of that gameplay reminded me of, though? I don't know if y'all ever played Army of Two. This shit needs a remaster, bro. This was my shit.
Here, it looks like attack plans. We've got target. He will pay.
Bro, the aggro meter, amazing mechanic. Basically how it works is, so there's Rios and Salem, you can play co-op or by yourself, but whoever's shooting the most enemies, they glow red, and you have this aggro meter, which basically means enemies are more focused on you. So if I'm shooting here a lot and I'm getting all the attention, my teammate can sort of sneak behind or like shoot people out of cover while the enemies don't pay attention to him, which is, you know, a cool mechanic. I won't lie, the guns were pretty expensive, but I mean, yeah, you get money, there's currency, you can customize it, buy new guns, upgrades, you get shields for your guns.
We gotta fight this guy, bro.
Damn, bro, he is on your ass. Bro, you're about to go down. Yeah, so like something like this, where like this player's like on the side of him, the other player would have to get their attention so he would turn, so then that way this person can shoot. Like I said, cool fucking mechanic, bro. I love this game.
Help, Elliot. I need some help.
Yeah, when you get knocked down, you can still lie on the ground while your teammate pulls you to revive you. You can still shoot and help. And once you in cover, revive your ass up.
Damn. Nothing like a nurse's touch.
Plus the dialogue was always funny, bro. Bro, they need to bring this game back, bro. This is what needs a remaster. Let's look that up. Yeah, Wingman FPS experiences were the best. Simply updating the graphics is like a waste. Well, duh, nigga, be innovative, bro. No one thought of gaming ideas back when this game was made. Implement some of that stuff into this, or make something. Think of ideas. If you're like, come on, nigga, who the fuck asked that type of question? Yeah, we definitely need, right? And 40 day. Yeah, there was two of them. There was this one and 40 a day. They were both good, bro. Technology just isn't there yet. Modern consoles can't handle split screen. You have to have ridiculous processing power. What is he talking about? Can't we mean modern consoles can't handle split screen? What is he talking about? Oh, he said couch co-op. I didn't read that. Well, I mean, I don't know about that. Well, I don't know who still plays couch co-op games. Who still does that? The way the games are so set up now, where everything you have your own account with your own like stuff and upgrades on it, or characters. That they sort of were trying to eliminate couch co-op from like the entire gaming world. So I doubt many people play couch co-op games. Is that Michael in Dead Rising? Looks like Michael from GTA. Dante's Inferno was an amazing fucking game. I would love to see a remaster of that. God of War doesn't need a remaster. They just reinvented the wheel, basically. Man. I don't know why this says Rise and Fall of Arma 2. The game never fell. Overdue revival, fans agree, for sure, 100%. Who developed this game? EA? Oh, motherfucker. Well, shit. That one's dead in the water. I remember Devil's Cartel, yeah. Or no, okay, I don't think I remember 40th Day. I remember Arma 2 and Devil's Cartel. I don't remember 40th Day that much. I think I had that mixed up. Alright, y'all. Well, that's my thoughts on this. Like I said, I don't think Resident Evil 5 is being inherently racist, just that out in the open. I see what you're saying, but I feel like you're either reaching or just drawing something that isn't actually there. And you're common gamer like me, we're not looking for all the woke stuff or the little details of racism or prejudice and shit like that in a video game, because we're just here to play a game for fun. I feel like that's why the game community is going downhill, because people keep trying to have all this woke BS and all this other shit in here instead of just realizing people are getting on the game to have fun. Now, if you want to do a story game that's like actually plot enveloped and like, you know, there's character development, things like that, sure, go woke. If it succeeds, it succeeds, that's on you. But if it's just a regular game where you're just shooting shit, bro, nobody cares about people killing black zombies. Like, bro, it's just a game. Anyway, y'all, that's this video, man. Make sure you like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new. Let me know your thoughts on that, and I will see you in the next video. Please take care and peace.